She was the woman every man wanted, but no one truly understood. Behind the platinum curls, the dazzling smile, and the name that defined Hollywood glamour, lived Norma Jean, a fragile, brilliant, and deeply lonely soul who spent her entire life searching for something that kept slipping through her hands. Genuine love. This is the story of the 6 men Marilyn Monroe truly loved most, ranked from least to most meaningful, not by fame, but by the depth of her connection and the mark each man left on her life. From desperate survival to lasting devotion, these relationships reveal a woman whose heart was as complicated as her legend. But before we begin, ask yourself, was Marilyn ever truly loved for who she was, or only for who the world wanted her to be? The answer may surprise you. If this kind of story touches your heart, if you're someone who cares about truth, responsibility, and speaking up for the voiceless, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share it with someone who should hear it. Let's get started. Number 6, James Dougherty, The Marriage of Survival. At just 16, Norma Jean faced an impossible choice: return to the orphanage or marry a man she barely knew. It was 1942. Her foster parents were moving away, and she was about to lose the only home she'd ever had. So she chose marriage. James Dougherty was 21, a factory worker, steady and kind. For the young girl who had spent her childhood shuffling between foster homes and orphanages, he represented safety. Not love, not passion, but the stability she'd never known. "I never knew Marilyn Monroe," Dougherty later admitted. "I knew and loved Norma Jean." For 4 short years, they shared a modest life. He went to work. She cooked, read, and dreamed of something beyond the factory walls. When Dougherty joined the Merchant Marines during World War II, Norma Jean took a job in a munitions plant where a photographer noticed her natural beauty. That chance encounter changed everything. By 1946, she had signed a contract with 20th Century Fox, dyed her hair blonde, and reinvented herself as Marilyn Monroe. Her marriage, she said later, brought me neither happiness nor pain. It simply faded away, like a forgotten chapter before the real story began. For Dougherty, she was a teenage wife. For Marilyn, he was her first stepping stone out of obscurity. A marriage of survival, not love. Number 5, Frank Sinatra, The Gentle Protector. 2 decades later, the world knew Marilyn as an icon, but inside, she was unraveling. It was 1961. Her marriage to playwright Arthur Miller had collapsed, her mental health was fragile, and she felt more alone than ever. Enter Frank Sinatra. Unlike the men who tried to control her or exploit her fame, Sinatra offered something rare in her world: simple, genuine companionship. He didn't need her for attention or status. He had his own empire. He didn't analyze her insecurities or demand explanations. He simply cared. They met often at his home in Palm Springs, where Marilyn could laugh, relax, and forget the pressure of being Marilyn Monroe. Frank was real. One of her friends later said she could be herself around him. Their relationship blurred the line between friendship and romance, but it was never toxic, never possessive. Just 2 lonely souls finding comfort in each other's company. Some believed it could have become more serious. Rumors of an engagement even floated around in early 1962. But Marilyn's heart was too battered, her trust too fragile. She loved Sinatra's stability, his loyalty, but she never fully gave herself to him. After her death, Sinatra was devastated. "If I'd known how bad things were," he told friends, "I would have been there." He never spoke publicly of her again. Their relationship was quiet, brief, and tender, a fleeting calm before her final storm. Number 4, John F. Kennedy, The Illusion of Power. Few names evoke more intrigue than this one. Marilyn Monroe and President John F. Kennedy, a pairing that burned bright and fast, leaving behind smoke, speculation, and heartbreak. They met at the height of Kennedy's presidency, when Marilyn was one of the most famous women on Earth. To her, he represented everything: charm, intelligence, power. To him, she was fascination embodied, but fleeting. "Happy birthday, Mr. President." The breathy serenade at Madison Square Garden in 1962 became a symbol of their alleged affair and of Marilyn's heartbreak. Behind the glamour, She reportedly told friends she believed Kennedy would leave his wife for her. "He's in love with me," she insisted to her housekeeper. But to Kennedy, she was not a partner, she was a moment. "I could take care of the president's needs," she allegedly told a friend, "but that doesn't make a relationship." This imbalance destroyed her. The fantasy she built around him, of being loved by a powerful man who saw her as more than a body, crumbled into reality. Friends recalled that, after their final meeting, she was inconsolable. It broke something in her that was already cracking, one confidant said. Their connection was electric, but shallow, a collision of two worlds that could never truly merge. The affair was not love, it was obsession wrapped in illusion. And for Marilyn, it left scars no one could see. Number 3, Marlon Brando, the kindred spirit. Of all her relationships, none was as quietly genuine as the one she shared with Marlon Brando. It wasn't publicized, it wasn't scandalous, but it was real. They met in the early 1950s, two actors at the height of fame, yet deeply misunderstood by the world. Brando admired her brilliance. "She was far brighter than people gave her credit for," he later wrote. "She had insight, humor, and an honesty that disarmed you." With Brando, Marilyn didn't have to play a role. She didn't have to be the blonde bombshell or the misunderstood wife. "When I was with Marlon," she once told a friend, "I didn't have to be Marilyn Monroe. I could just be me." They talked about books, acting, politics, things most people never imagined she cared about. They shared laughter, passion, and long, honest conversations that grounded her amid Hollywood chaos. Their relationship ebbed and flowed over the years, sometimes romantic, sometimes purely platonic, but always built on mutual respect. Unlike the men who tried to define her, Brando simply accepted her. No judgment, no agenda, just connection. Their affair ended quietly, but their friendship lasted. After her death, Brando sent flowers to her funeral. In his autobiography, he wrote that she was one of the most misunderstood people he'd ever known. For Marilyn, Brando was a rare glimpse of what love could feel like, honest, intellectual human. Number 2, Arthur Miller, the dream of being understood. When Marilyn married playwright Arthur Miller in 1956, she told reporters, "This is the first time I've ever been really in love." And perhaps she believed it. For the first time, she wasn't chasing stability or protection, she was chasing meaning. Miller was brilliant, introspective, and already celebrated for death of a salesman. For Marilyn, marrying him symbolized transformation. From movie star to serious actress, from fantasy to intellect. She yearned to be seen not just as beautiful, but as smart, as deep, as worthy. In the beginning it worked. Miller adored her. He wrote The Misfits specifically for her, hoping to showcase her dramatic talent. They spent long nights discussing literature and art. For a moment, Marilyn believed she'd finally found the man who saw all of her, the light and the darkness. But cracks soon appeared. Miller began to feel burdened by her vulnerability and insecurities. In private notes later discovered by Marilyn, he confessed that he was embarrassed by her and questioned whether marrying her had been a mistake. When she found those words, she was shattered. "It was as if my whole world collapsed," she told a friend. "He was my hero, and he was ashamed of me." The marriage continued, but the damage was done. By the time they filmed The Misfits in 1961, their love had disintegrated. Miller turned her pain into art, writing about their relationship in After the Fall, a final betrayal that immortalized her flaws for the world to dissect. Arthur Miller represented Marilyn's longing to be understood, to be respected beyond her beauty. Instead, he reminded her that even those who claimed to love her could never fully see her for who she truly was. Number 1, Joe DiMaggio, the love that endured. And then there's Joe, the baseball legend, the all-American hero, the man who never stopped loving her, even when she was gone. They married in January 1954, and the world celebrated the perfect match, America's favorite athlete and Hollywood's brightest star. But behind the headlines, their marriage was stormy. Joe was traditional conservative and deeply protective. Marilyn was ambitious, driven, and loved the spotlight. Their differences clashed almost immediately. The breaking point came with the 7-year itch, that famous scene of her white dress billowing over a subway grate. Joe was furious, humiliated. They fought bitterly, and within 9 months, the marriage ended. But unlike every other man in her life, Joe didn't disappear. He didn't exploit her. He didn't turn their love into gossip. Instead, he remained, quietly, faithfully. When Marilyn was institutionalized in 1961, it was Joe who came to rescue her, threatening to tear the place down brick by brick if they didn't release her. When she was lost, he was her safe harbor. Joe was the one person who never wanted anything from me except me, she once said. They reconnected shortly before her death, and friends claimed they planned to remarry. I know now what's important in life, she told him. I thought I knew, but I didn't. Joe, I always loved you. After she died in August 1962, Joe arranged for fresh roses to be delivered to her crypt 3 times a week. For 20 years, the flowers never stopped coming. He never remarried. He never wrote a tell-all. And his final words, it said, were, "I'll finally get to see Marilyn again." Joe DiMaggio may not have been perfect, but he was constant. His love endured beyond fame, beyond pain, beyond death itself. In a world that devoured her innocence, Joe was the one man who never let go.